As most of you will know, I'm a love and relationship coach who helps people, but especially women, change how love feels and move from feeling a little bit stuck and worried about time running out to hopefully more excited, hopeful, and really confident and clear actually on who they want to be with. And a topic that comes up a lot with clients and a lot with my community, especially on Instagram, is good old ghosting. Now, there have been so much content on about what we do, why people ghost, all that sort of thing. But I actually wanted to talk today about how we can turn ghosting to your advantage, because whilst it can really hurt, whilst there can be a lot of rejection, whilst it can bring up a lot of triggers around abandonment and ego and disappointment and rejection, actually it can be such a important thing for you to be able to learn from and move forward. And I was talking about this on a podcast the other day, and during my research, I didn't actually realise that how prevalent ghosting was. So it now says something like 75% of candidates when they're applying for jobs will be ghosted by companies after a first interview, which is insane. So it's seeping into kind of every corner of society, but countries such as the Philippines, certain legislators are now arguing that it should be criminalised because they equate it to a form of emotional abuse. And whilst I'm not quite sure how you would monitor that, and I think jail time might be going a bit too far, it is a really interesting concept. So I think what we need to talk about ghosting is, how we can move through it so we're not stuck in that kind of pain of rejection or disappointment. I mean, we've all been there, haven't we, where we've gone on an amazing date, we think it's flowed, it's been really natural, it's been flirty, they've said they'd love to see us again, then they don't text, they don't call. Or, perhaps you've been talking maybe on a dating app or over text, and it's been going on for a considerable amount of time. You send pictures every day, you talk about what you're doing, you explore what you're both looking for, and then when it comes time to meet, poof, they're gone, hello Casper. Or you could have been on a few dates with somebody already and gradually you feel them kind of pulling away, and messages are getting shorter with more time in between, or plans get cancelled and rearranged until one day just nada. And I think we can kind of say that that's a bit more of a slow fade, but where there's been ghosting with kind of no communication about how they're feeling, and then it just cuts off. Like, whatever the situation, it can really, really suck. And even with sort of, big girl pants on and all your experience with dating, it can really put you back into that mindset of what's wrong with me? Or, you can start to see it as a sign of, why aren't I good enough? If I was good enough, they wouldn't have done X, Y, and Z. And I'm not going to go into the details of why people ghost. I've included some of that on my blog, which I will link. But really we want to talk about how can we move past this phase of feeling like what's wrong with me and, what could I have done? We don't want to get stuck in that kind of guessing of why they've disappeared. Because that's what I think, the more we stay in that space, the kind of more painful it can become, and sometimes it's actually not helpful to do so. So when I'm working on this with clients, there's two kind of key areas that I focus on. One is looking at the question, how can we use this situation to move them forward in some way? And two is, where do we want to put our energy now? So because every client will have a different context, a different story, and be working on different things, but really for that client, they can decide, whether the best lesson for them is going to be choosing to move forward and not saying anything and taking silence as the closure, as it feels better to close off their energy to that person and focus on what's to come. Or the client might take it as an opportunity to speak up and send a polite and empowering message to the culprit as a way to practice setting boundaries and communicating. So I'd say that's your starting point, exactly after the ghosting, what do we want to be doing? How can we learn? How can we further our own dating style? How can we set more boundaries? How can we, do something that feels empowering for us? And that can sometimes be saying nothing, not giving any more of your energy, or speaking up. And after that, we then look at, what do we want to do more of? where do we want to put our energy? Again, rather than going to social media and stalking them, or rereading all their conversations, or seeing when they were last on WhatsApp, rechecking the dating apps to see if they're there, posting pictures on Instagram or TikTok in order to get their attention, sending messages saying, hey stranger, rather than putting our focus and energy back on them, what can we do that feels good for ourselves? And this might be something like, feeling feelings, talking it out until it gets to that point that I've said that actually feels like an energy drain. Using it as an opportunity to look at their own behaviour, as we've all ghosted in some way or another, I would say. Unless we're squeaky clean, there will be things we're doing actually that we're saying it doesn't feel good when it's done to us. So how can we, really clean up our own act? We can double down on gratitude, planning exciting things to do in the future. We can book in time now to see friends, to put the focus back on us, to go to the gym, to journal, to, get dressed up, whatever it might be that makes you feel good. We can actually take what we've learned from that dating experience and do a bit of exploring and journaling on what we do want, what we are excited for, what qualities and values actually are really important to us based on that. We can look at what, in the future, in an ideal world, we would have liked to have done differently. What maybe would we have said earlier on? What could we have communicated? Where could we have been more ourselves? We can look at the dating situation or the ghosting situation as a learning experience itself. We might do any kind of healing work that comes up on the belief around rejection, abandonment, or self-worth, that sort of stuff. We can delete, block, do a little cull of who's on our phone, on our social media, whether we could have a clear out of things we've got lying around our house that might be related to past love interests, to past people. There's basically so much we could do. So I would say, if you're in this situation, first of all, make the decision. If you want to say something because it's empowering, or if you actually want to take this as closure, move on, and then think of, let's say, 4 things you can do in the next few days that is going to help you shift your energy from looking at them and being in that place of self-doubt to getting excited about where we want to be and what we're moving towards, using some of those examples like setting boundaries. So that's it. That's all I'm going to say on the matter, but I really do believe that if you kind of follow this process, you will turn ghosting to your advantage, because it's going to further how we're showing up and what's going on with us. It's going to get us clearer. It's going to make we're going to get better at speaking up. It's going to make our boundaries stronger. We can move out of that place, hopefully, quite quickly. Please do rate, subscribe, follow, all the usual bits. Please do drop me any questions you might have. As always, you can book a consult call with me by emailing Caitlin, which is CAITLIN, at thecompatibilitycoach.co.uk, and I will see you all later.